Hi and welcome to another video. I want to outline the biggest mistakes older runners make with their training plans. And really, as an older runner, do you find yourself working harder with your training runs but getting really diminishing results, or you're kind of plateauing? And if that is so, do you understandably blame age? And whilst age is a factor, when I coach runners, once you strip out aging as a thing, then there's a lot of other factors that are getting in the way of older endurance runners progressing. And if that's you, buckle up, because I'm going to go into a deep as to the things that I would suggest that you need to change to move beyond plateauing results or help yourself avoid avoidable injury. Let me ask you, you're an older runner. You decide that you want to do a certain race, half marathon, whatever it is. You want to improve on that race, or you want something from that specific race. You buy a training plan. It might be a very reputable training plan. 12 to 18 weeks later, you aren't any better, or worse, you feel that you've gone backwards, or that you're injured and you think, I don't really feel how I could have got injured doing that. So if that's the case, the training plan is just a map. The map is often not even made for people like you and me. You know, the map hasn't got older runners in mind in the first place. And even if it was, so for example, let's say that you came to me and I created a training plan with you specifically in mind. It would still be a case, and I'd say this to the runners I coach, that how you navigated that map would define the results or lack of results that you got. But let's lay down some actual proof of this. If this wasn't true, then what I could do is say to every endurance older runner that watch this video that I was going to give them a plan. Let's go a step further. Let's say the first 10%, I would chat to them and find out about what they'd been doing and then create the plan for them. But if that was the case, then, and the plan was the primary only thing to success, that would mean long as those runners followed that plan, they would succeed. But we all know that isn't what happens. We all know, generally speaking, there would be a percentage that would do well, but there would be a percentage that didn't. So what's the actual solution? Well, as I just said, I can't give you a blow-by-blow individual solution. If you want that, then I've got solutions below this video to help you with that. However, talking very, very broad, when people do their training plans, they pretty much inherently do their easy runs too hard. What I mean by that is that they're not conversational. And with their speed workouts, they don't get the dosage right. As an older runner, everything is about dosage, if you stop to think about it. When you were younger, you could go out late and run next day. Sleep wasn't that important. Now the dosage of sleep has to be right. When you navigate your training plan, it's logical that becomes important for any runner, but for an older runner, the dosage becomes key about running your easy runs and then getting the dosage right with your speed workouts. So why is it important to get that dosage right? Because if you don't get it right, what you'll end up having is a fantastic training plan that you navigate incorrectly. That will mean that you will more than likely train really hard but get diminishing results, or worse, hit injuries that you could have avoided. So I'm just going to go through what I feel is more of a deep dive on what I would suggest to the runners I coach when they first start with us. And I'm going to give you a speed workout example as well, and the sort of things I would say to the runners I coach to navigate their speed workouts. I feel that by doing this, if you follow this and accept the simplicity but the effectiveness of this advice, you will be in a much better position to navigate your training plan more effectively. Okay, so I'm just going to bring you into an imaginary training plan. Don't take me up on this in what you would or wouldn't do or anything like that. I've just laid out some runs that I see a lot of runners get wrong. And like, as I've said, it's the interpretation of how you do it. Now I'm going to outline in the video later our 5-zone system, but needless to say, first of all, you've got to say a growth day here. What you actually do with that growth day is key. So, you know, in the ideal world, you don't want to be putting in high intensity stuff if you can avoid it. Well, I know we're not professional athletes, And sometimes I've had to do this. One of my days off is Monday for my hair salon I own. I've gone to a PT. It's not the ideal scenario. Growth days should be there to kind of give yourself time to recover. Now, you've got something here called a finish fast. Now, where runners get this wrong is they do not respect the easier zones 1 and 2 of this. And what I mean by this is zone 3 is comfortably hard. So it would be what a lot of runners, when they arrive for us for coaching, they're doing most of their runs like this. So I'll allude to this in a minute, but they're doing their easy runs too hard and their speed workouts are too elongated, which I'll come to in a moment. But when you kind of to do this where you have a pickup at the end of a run, if you do this zone 1 and 2 section too fast, i.e. it isn't conversational, which as I say I'll come to in a moment, then there isn't the capacity to come up comfortably into this zone 3. It should be like going up a gear, not going up 2 gears or 3 gears. And a lot of runners, when we first coach them, they will do this run and they say it felt extraordinarily hard in this. And I say, well, if you do, it's about this part. So it's about the point I'm going to be really making with this section of the video is runners focus on the fast bits of runs, or they focus on running their hardest in any zone. Whereas with this, if you run this section nice and easy, then the pickup becomes easier in this finish fast. Now, if you're going to do an easy run, do it easy. So you'll have a section in something like this where zone 1 is conversational, very easy conversational. Zone 2 would be conversational with a bit more effort. What we find most runners, when they come to us, they are, as I said, running comfortably hard. So they will say they're running easy, but if you said, could you count, could you talk while you're running, they would say they can. And I often say, don't become a zone creep, in the respect, don't tell me you can, have you actually tried it? And actually, when runners actually try this, they're quite surprised because they're kind of kidding themselves. They're becoming a zone creep, but they're in the respect that they're telling themselves that their easy runs are easy, but they're not really. Why do we do this? Well, because of our egos, because we like to think that our training is directly connected with our racing. What I mean by that is that we have a race pace in mind. We've got a goal, a half marathon, a marathon, whatever it is. And then when we come to do our training, we think there should be some direct correlation with that. So we think in the early stages of our training, goodness, this feels really slow compared to usually your race pace or compared to how you like to run, which if we give runners a zone, pretty much most runners left to their own devices, if we say we want you to run conversationally, most runners will run at the top end of that. Whereas what most runners don't understand is even if they run a little bit slower than that, or even at the bottom of it, so a lot slower, they would still get the same adaptations, benefits with less work. So basically you become a more efficient runner. Speed workouts. The big thing is with speed workouts is they become too elongated. What do I mean by that? Well, that a lot of runners doing club workouts, the RC, that their run is, an hour. And in that hour, if I ask them how much of that was the intensity, it can be a good chunk of it. Now, I've just pulled this workout together, but as an example here, you've got nearly 40 minutes of running, but look, you've got 8 minutes of intensity. Now, zone 5 means your hardest effort. Now, I don't mean your hardest pace, it's your hardest effort for whatever duration. For example, if we were coaching you, we would be asking you to do. So your hardest effort for a minute here. But what most runners would go to in this workout would focus on this. As a coach, I'm focusing on the zone 1 and 2 at the beginning, the 10 minutes. Make sure that's really, really easy. And this, the recovery section of the short intervals. Zone 1 means that you could be able to talk almost like I'm talking to you now. So if it means just walking for 2 minutes to be able to do that, that increases the likelihood that these 8 1-minute zone 5s will be performed at their peak effort. But you also want to remember that your body doesn't recognize pace, it only recognizes effort. And if you don't believe me on that, run up a hill at the same pace as you go down it. It's the same pace, but 2 different effort scores, isn't it? That's because your body only recognizes effort. So even if your pace starts to drop, say on the 6th repetition of this workout, as long as you're putting in the same effort, i.e. your maximum effort, you'll still get the bang for buck for this workout. But the big takeaway here from everything I'm really pointing out is when you look at what you're navigating in your training plan, really respect the lower zones. Don't focus here just on the fast bit. Make sure that these zone 1 and 2s are respected, that they are truly conversational. And if in doubt, go easier. Really, really respect your recovery aspects here. Zone 1, make sure you're conversational as best you can in that 2 minutes. You're going to perform these aspects here. But it's about the dosage. It's only about 8 minutes in 39 minutes. So there's 31 minutes of easy running if you respect that. And that means the dosage is more shorter and sharper. That means that you get the adaptations with a much quicker recovery and a much less likely chance that you're going to get injury. So you literally reduce your risk of avoidable injuries. So it's really how you navigate runs. It's not just about the training plan itself. Anyway, back to the video. Bye for now. Okay, so hopefully that was useful. Now, one of the things that I outline is about running to fill. And though I've done videos on this, I just wanted to outline this on today's video. We run to a 5-zone effort score. Now, what we do as a coaching company is we will get heart rate and pace zones, but we often ask our runners to run to effort. And the zones would go something like this. Zone 1, easy conversational. So you and I, if I was running alongside with you, we could have a conversation like this. Zone 2, a bit more effort, but you could still talk. So your breathing might be a little bit more apparent, but you'd be running along. And if I was running with you, you could still talk for a long period of time. As I've mentioned earlier in the example, most runners, what I call, become zone creeps. They say that they're running conversationally, but if you ask them to count out loud while they were doing their zone 1 or 2 runs, most of the time they're not. And actually what they're in is mainly zone 3, which is comfortably hard. This is where the zone I find most runners are doing most of their runs when they come to us to be coached. Either they're doing their, as I've mentioned, their easy runs too hard, or their speed workouts, as I've also mentioned, are too elongated. The dosage isn't right. They don't have the short, sharp parts of speed, but the overall workout is too long. And so they're in an upper zone 3 for a long period of time. And by running in this zone too much, it's not a bad zone in itself. Everything has its place. Running in zone 3 a lot generally means over a long period of time, you've guessed it, your results plateau and your injury risk goes up. Zone 4 is kind of for many runners like a good 5k pace. I would say out of 10, you're probably running at an effort score of about an 8 or maybe a 9. You could talk, but it'd be literally just, yep, no, okay, and you'd be a hard effort. And then your hardest effort is zone 5. And I must stress, hardest effort. When we're talking to runners about running their hardest effort in zone 5, we're talking about effort, not pace. Pace, you could probably run your fastest pace for about 8 to 11 seconds. But when we're talking about your hardest effort, the hardest effort is relative to the distance that you're running. So your hardest effort over 100 meters is going to be very different from your hardest effort over 400 meters. So it's not to be confused with about your hardest. And that 5 zones is what we work diligently with runners. But the big thing is to really make sure that you, particularly when you're first doing this, that you're very clear. And that's why the zone 3, though it's not, I don't like to demonize it, I minimize it in the early stages so that runners even know that they're running very conversationally, or that they've got periods of speed in their workout, but then the rest of the time they're in zone 1 or 2. So the dosage, as I've come back to, as I said earlier, is as near as spot on as possible. And adaptations, they will get more consistency, they will improve as a runner, they've got more chance of turning up on race day fresh and ready, and a reduced risk of unnecessary injuries. So in conclusion, all this can seem so simple, too simple, and runners often think there must be more. The dosage, as I've said, is the key point. So really, when we're looking at this, what I'm really saying for a lot of older endurance runners, it isn't what you do, it's how you do it. You know, that you can look at the plan, you can see a workout, but if you don't get the dosage right on that workout, if you're running your easy runs too hard and your speed runs are too elongated, then the map, you aren't actually following the map. And that means if you're not following the map, you're much less likely to turn up at the right destination. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit of self-promotion right at the end. If you're wanting to, as a 50+ endurance runner, to run faster for longer without training so hard, remember I have my weekly newsletter that's completely free, and also I have my foundations program and our audit, which let me look at your present training plan, audit it for you, and show you the steps that you need to take to improve your training. But all of that is below here, below the video, and if you have any questions, just throw them into the comments and I'll get back to you ASAP. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.